At 35, I realized I'd become invisible in my own home. The perfect wife, the convenient mother, the obliging housewife. On my anniversary, I was expecting a celebration, but instead, I received a humorous gift from my husband that was the last straw. They thought I'd remain silent and smile, as usual. But that evening, I decided to test the waters if the perfect woman rebelled and simply left. Could the head of the family survive even a week without his primary function? Hello, dear listeners. I'm glad to welcome you. I present to you a new, interesting story. Enjoy. Natasha woke up at 5 a.m., even though her alarm was set for 6 a.m. Sleep had vanished. She only had to remember that today was her 35th birthday. She lay there, staring at the gray, pre-dawn ceiling, listening to her husband's steady, booming snores. Igor was asleep, sprawled across 3/4 of the bed, as always. 35, a third of her life, maybe even half, already behind her. And yet it felt as if she had lived someone else's fate, not her own. Natasha quietly, trying not to creak the bed, stood up. However, it seemed that even a cannon wouldn't wake Igor. Pulling on an old terrycloth robe, she tiptoed out of the bedroom. On the way, she glanced into her son's room. Artyom was asleep, hugging a pillow, his dark hair spread out over the pillowcase. 14 years old, almost a grown man, and his socks were scattered all over the room like mines on a battlefield. Natasha automatically bent down, picked up one pair, then another, but suddenly froze. Why? After all, it was her birthday. With a kind of quiet defiance, she put the socks back on the floor and continued on her way. In the kitchen, Natasha turned on the TV. The light came on and she looked around. Yesterday she'd been cleaning until midnight, scrubbing the stove until it sparkled and arranging the shelves for today's feast. Igor had invited about 20 guests. Without her consent, of course, he'd simply set the table. As if they were talking about a couple of sandwiches and not a feast for 20 people. Natasha put the kettle on and took a huge chicken out of the fridge. She needed to marinate the meat, clean a mountain of vegetables, and bake a pie. Stop. She froze, knife in hand, looking at her reflection in the knife's blade. Why should she cook for her own birthday? Why didn't Igor offer to hire a caterer or book a table at a restaurant? Because it was more convenient, cheaper, and because Natasha always managed everything. She worked as a chief accountant at a large construction company, earned more than her husband, but still managed to run the house, cook 3-course dinners, check her son's homework, and drive him to practice. Igor, a manager at a car dealership, came home at 8 p.m. with a heavy sigh. He plopped down on the couch. Tired, he said, turning on the TV. But Natasha, apparently, wasn't tired. She got up at 6 a.m., made breakfast, took her son to school, juggled numbers and reports all day, then picked up Artyom from his club, stopped at the grocery store, and stood in the kitchen until late at night. But no one ever asked if she was tired. The phone on the table quietly vibrated. A message from her friend Joanna. Happy birthday, sunshine. How are you? Ready for the party? Natasha smiled bitterly and typed a reply. Chicken at 5 a.m. Is that a misfortune? Joanna immediately sent an eye-rolling emoji. Everything's hanging on you again, Natasha. When will you learn to say no? When? Good question. Natasha herself didn't remember the moment when she turned into an unpaid servant in her own family. It happened gradually, imperceptibly. At first, she just wanted to be a good wife and mother, cooking dinner after work. Aleftina Petrovna considered herself the unofficial mistress of this house, although she lived in a different neighborhood. She came to visit her grandson every week and invariably found something to complain about. Dust on the cupboard, undersalted soup, Igor's wrinkled shirt. You're a woman, Natasha, she said reproachfully. You have to look after the house. My Igor was used to order. My Igor, a 40-year-old man who couldn't heat up his own food in the microwave. Natasha began to carve the chicken with fury, trying not to make any noise. It was still dark outside, only lonely streetlights illuminated the deserted courtyard. Somewhere out there, in this huge city, there were women whose husbands gave them flowers for their birthday and arranged surprises. There were couples where both cooked dinner, both cleaned, both took care of each other. And she had Igor. He wasn't a bad person, he didn't drink, he didn't cheat. At least, she didn't know about it, he didn't beat her. He simply didn't notice. He didn't notice how tired Natasha was. He didn't notice that she'd been wearing old boots for months because all the money had gone on Artyom's new phone. He didn't notice that she hadn't been to the hairdresser, or to the movies, or even to a cafe with her friends in a long time. The last time she and Igor went to the movies was 3 years ago. She bought tickets for his birthday. He chose a movie called Action, with lots of explosions. Natasha, exhausted, fell asleep halfway through. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was her mother. "Happy birthday, dear." Her mother's voice was cheerful, despite the early hour. "How are you getting ready for the evening?" "Hi, Mom." "Yes, I'm getting ready," Natasha managed to say. "Daddy and I will be there at 6. I wanted to bake your favorite Napoleon cake, but Igor said you'd do it yourself." Natasha gritted her teeth. "Of course," he said, "why bother your mother-in-law when you have a wife?" "It's okay, Mom." But for some reason this praise didn't warm her, it burned her. Because Natasha didn't want to be a good wife. She just wanted to be a beloved woman who was brought flowers on her birthday and made breakfast in bed. When she hung up, her son appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mom, I'm hungry." "Good morning, Artyom." "Happy birthday, Mom," she said emphatically. The teenager yawned. "Oh, yes, happy birthday. So, what's for breakfast?" Natasha looked at her son. A tall, strong guy, a carbon copy of his father and just as inattentive. She suddenly realized with horror that she was raising another Igor, a boy who would believe that a woman exists to cook, clean, and serve. "Artyom, make yourself some sandwiches, I'm busy." "Come on, Mom, you always make breakfast." "Not always. Today is my birthday, and I'm not cooking breakfast, but a celebratory dinner for 20 people." Her son grumbled something discontentedly and trudged to the refrigerator. Natasha returned to the chicken, feeling a sick feeling inside. Something hot and unpleasant was boiling. Irritation, resentment, anger. At 9 a.m., a well-rested Igor appeared in the kitchen. He walked in scratching his stomach and immediately stared at the stove. "Wow, already cooking in full swing? Good job. By the way, I arranged for Mom to arrive early, she wants to help you set the table." Natasha slowly turned to him. "Help?" Aleftina Petrovna never helped. She commanded, criticized, and interfered. "Igor, what are you planning to do today?" Her husband raised his eyebrows in surprise. "What do you mean, what?" "I have guests invited, organized everything. By the way, we need to buy champagne and vodka. Write it down so you don't forget. Write it down so you don't forget." Natasha felt something click inside. "Igor, today is my day." Natasha vividly imagined Igor running into the nearest store at the last minute and buying a routine box of chocolates or cheap hand cream, like last year and the year before. "I understand," was all she said. Igor, not catching the irony, nodded and went to take a shower. And Natasha remained in the kitchen, looking at the carved chicken and a mountain of unpeeled vegetables, and suddenly thought, what if I just leave right now? Get dressed and leave the house, leaving all this cooking, cleaning, fuss behind. But she didn't leave, because in 8 hours guests would arrive, parents, in-laws, Igor's brothers with their families, several colleagues. They would be expecting a set table, and if there wasn't one, Natasha would be to blame. Not Igor, who hadn't organized anything, nor her mother-in-law, who only criticized, but Natasha, because she was the hostess, the woman, she had to. By lunchtime, Natasha had finished with the main courses. The chicken was simmering in the oven, the salads were in the fridge, the potatoes were peeled. All that remained was to set the table and get herself ready. She went up to the bedroom to take a shower and found Igor talking on the phone. "Yes, Mom, everything is fine. Natasha cooked everything, but of course I helped. When will you be arriving?" "Okay, I'm waiting. By the way, I put your gift in the car. You'll like it, I'm sure." He hung up and turned to his wife. "Mom is on her way, she'll bring you flowers. She's generally well done, always remembering things like this." Natasha silently walked into the bathroom. Flowers from her mother-in-law. How touching. Aleftina Petrovna, who had never spoken a kind word to Natasha in 15 years of marriage, suddenly decided to give her flowers. Probably the cheapest carnations from the stall near the metro. She stood under the hot streams of the shower and cried silently. Tears mixed with water. Aleftina Petrovna, a plump woman with a cold gaze, walked through the rooms, examining everything with a critical eye. "Ah, Natasha, there you are. I've already started setting the table. Your plates are dusty, wipe them down better. And the tablecloth is kind of wrinkled. Couldn't you iron it?" "Good afternoon, Aleftina Petrovna." Igor said, "You've prepared everything. Well done. At least you're useful in something." Natasha clenched her fists and walked past her mother-in-law into the bedroom. She needed to change. She took a new dress out of the closet, a gray, modest one, bought last month on sale. She wanted something bright and beautiful, but there wasn't enough money in the family budget for that. But there was money for new rims for Igor's car. At 6 p.m., guests began to arrive. Natasha's parents, Igor's brothers, colleagues. Everyone congratulated her, gave flowers and symbolic gifts, boxes of chocolates, creams, a bottle of wine. Natasha smiled, thanked them, and seated everyone at the table. She played the role of a gracious hostess, although inside, everything was clenching into a tight, icy lump. Igor sat at the head of the table, contented and relaxed. He poured drinks for the guests, cracked jokes, and accepted compliments on the excellently organized evening. No one asked Natasha how she managed it all. Everyone took it as granted. The ceremony was over, and then came the moment for the gifts. So, Igor stood up, holding a glass in his hand. "I want to make a toast. Today is my beloved wife's birthday. 35 years old. A significant date. Natasha, you're a great girl. You cook great, you keep the house in order, you raise your son. What else does a man need to be happy?" The guests laughed politely. Natasha forced a smile. "But first," Igor continued, "I want to congratulate one more important person. Mom, come out here." Aleftina Petrovna, beaming with pleasure, stood up from her seat. "Here, take it." He handed her the keys. Aleftina Petrovna gasped. "Igor, are you serious?" "You couldn't be more serious. She's standing downstairs, under the windows, a new car." The mother-in-law burst into tears of happiness and rushed to hug her son. The guests began to buzz, congratulating Aleftina Petrovna. Someone proposed a toast to their generous son. Igor beamed, and Natasha sat as if stunned. The car. He bought his mother a new car. It cost at least 1,000,000 rubles. And in 15 years of marriage, he hadn't bought her anything more expensive than a slow cooker. She looked at her husband, and he, catching her glance, winked conspiratorially. "Well, so, it's your turn now," he said, pulling something out from under the table. It was a regular plastic bag from the supermarket. Natasha felt her insides drop. Igor solemnly placed the bag in front of her. "Here's your present, darling." Natasha peered into the bag. It contained a new saucepan and a broom. She was silent for a few seconds, not believing her eyes, then slowly raised her head. Igor grinned, clearly proud of his joke. "Now you'll cook in a new saucepan and clean with a broom," he said loudly, so everyone could hear. The mother-in-law chuckled. "Igor, you're such a joker. But really, the hostess needs a saucepan more." The guests laughed awkwardly, tensely. Natasha's parents were silent, exchanging glances. Her father frowned, and Natasha slowly took the saucepan and broom out of the bag, placed them on the table in front of her, and smiled. Everyone fell silent, looking at her. "Thank you, Igor," she said quietly but clearly. "A very symbolic gift. You know, I really will accept it." Igor sighed with relief, deciding that his wife appreciated his humor. He raised his glass again, intending to continue the toast. But Natasha wasn't finished. "Natasha, what's wrong with you?" Igor laughed nervously. "It was a joke." "A joke?" Natasha looked at him calmly and coldly. "Your mother got a car for 1,000,000 rubles. A new car. And I, your wife, who has been supporting this house for 15 years, working alongside you and raising your son, got a saucepan for 300 rubles and a broom for 100. And that should be funny." Aleftina Petrovna jumped up from her chair. "Natasha, how dare you? I'm Igor's mother. I've been, all my life." "You, all my life, what?" Natasha turned to her mother-in-law. "You raised a son. Congratulations. That's your responsibility as a mother. But I'm not obliged to serve a grown man who can't even pick up his socks, and I'm not obliged to endure your weekly inspections, during which you tell me how to live in my own house." "Natasha, calm down," Natasha's father tried to intervene. "Let's not do this in front of the guests." "No, Dad, exactly in front of the guests. Let everyone see and hear." She turned to Igor again. He sat pale and bewildered, looking at his wife as if he was seeing her for the first time. "Igor, I got up at 5 o'clock this morning to cook this dinner. I cooked all day. I set the table, greeted the guests, smiled. And you bought alcohol, thinking you had everything organized. You didn't ask me if I even wanted to celebrate my birthday at home. You didn't ask if I was tired. You didn't offer to order food or go to a restaurant, because you're comfortable when I do everything. But you never complained," Igor blurted out. "You always did everything. I thought you liked it." "You thought?" Natasha laughed sadly. "I like working 14 hours a day. I like that I don't remember the last time I went to the cinema, to the theater, or met up with friends. I like wearing old things because all the money goes to the family, while you change your car every 3 years." "Natasha," her mother intervened, "why are you doing this? Igor didn't do it on purpose. Men, they don't notice things like that." "Mom, I'm sorry, but I don't want to hear these excuses anymore. Men don't notice. It's not an explanation, it's an excuse. Igor notices perfectly well when he needs to buy new rims for the car or a new phone. He simply doesn't notice me, because I've become part of the interior, furniture that cooks and cleans." Igor finally came to his senses from the shock. "Natasha, stop making a scene. The guests are sitting there, everyone can hear. You're embarrassing me." "I'm embarrassing you?" Natasha nodded slowly. "I see. So, when you gave me a saucepan under the laughter of your mother, it wasn't embarrassing. And when I tell the truth, it is." She put the pot and broom on the table and took her phone out of her dress pocket. She scrolled through something for a few seconds, then raised the screen so everyone could see. "Do you know what this is? This is a statement of our joint account for the last year. Here," she poked her finger at the screen. "Buying a new car for Igor. 1,200,000, here's a new gaming computer for Artyom, 80,000. Here are the renovations at your mother's apartment, Igor. 150,000, and do you know how much was spent on me personally this year, besides groceries and household cleaning supplies? 4,000 rubles on one dress. This very dress I'm wearing now. The guests were silent. Some stared at their plates, some at Igor. Igor's brother gave an awkward sideways glance. Aleftina Petrovna couldn't stand it. But that's normal. The man is the head. I bring more money into this family than he does every month, and at the same time, I run the whole house, cook, clean, and look after the child. And your head of the family comes home from work and lies down on the couch. So who supports whom here? Igor jumped up, knocking over his chair. That's enough, Natasha. You've become completely insolent. I work. I support the family. You don't support the family, Natasha interrupted him calmly. We support it together. Or rather, I support it to a greater extent, but for some reason it's considered that you're doing me a favor by letting me live in the apartment, which, by the way, is registered in my name because the mortgage was given on my salary. Remember, being a wife in this house means serving everyone for free and 7 days a week. She picked up the pot and broom again and headed for the exit. Natasha, stop. Where are you going? Igor yelled. His face was contorted with rage and confusion. She turned around at the threshold of the living room. I'm leaving. I'm leaving this celebration that you arranged for yourselves, not for me. And you know what, Igor? I'm taking this gift with me. The pot and the broom, as a symbol. A symbol that I will no longer use them. These are your tools now. Cook yourself, clean yourself, wash yourself. Maybe then you'll understand how much work and time I put into this. Are you crazy? Aleftina Petrovna rushed to her son. Igor, she doesn't have the right. It's unheard of, to abandon a family and guests. I'm not abandoning my family, Natasha looked at her mother-in-law. I'm just going to celebrate my birthday the way I want. Without cooking, without cleaning, without your company. And you figure it out yourselves. There's enough food. You can wash the dishes yourself for a change. She went into the hallway and pulled on her coat. Igor flew out after her, grabbed her hand. Natasha, don't dare go. I won't allow you. She calmly freed herself. I reached this limit today when you handed me the saucepan, after buying a car for your mother. So it was you who pushed me. Are you mad because of the car? Igor tried to feign understanding. Well, do you want a car? If not now, then in 6 months. It's not about the car, Natasha said tiredly. It's about respect. You don't respect me. You never have. For you, I'm a convenient housekeeper who also earns money. And I'm tired of being convenient. She opened the front door. The apartment was deathly silent. The guests, holding their breath, watched what was happening. I'm leaving for a week, Natasha said. Her voice was even and firm. During this time, you will all think, are you ready to change your attitude towards me? And I will think, am I ready to return to this family? Natasha. Igor cried in despair. You can't just up and leave. What about me, what about my son? Who will feed us? She turned around one last time, and there was a cold smile on her face. You are a man, Igor, the head of the family. You will figure it out. The door slammed. Natasha stood on the landing, holding on to the railing. Her hands were shaking, her heart was pounding so hard that it seemed about to jump out of her chest. She did it. For the first time in 15 years, she said everything she thought. For the first time, she left without looking back. The phone vibrated. A message from Jeanna. I heard everything through your unfinished call. You are a goddess. Where are you? Come to me immediately. Natasha typed back. I'm coming. She went downstairs, got into a taxi and drove across the city to see her friend. On the way, her mother called. Honey, where are you? What happened? Maybe you'll come back. Talk calmly. Mom, I did what I should have done many years ago. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'll be fine. But Natasha. Mom sighed. Joanna, tall, bright, was the complete opposite of Natasha. Divorced, lives alone, works as a designer, travels. You're something else, she said admiringly, sitting her friend down on the sofa. I always knew there was a lioness inside you. I was just waiting for it to break out. Joanna, I don't even know what came over me. I just couldn't take it anymore. And you're right. Lord, I've been telling you for years, leave that man. He doesn't appreciate you. Natasha lowered her head. But we are a family, we have a son. 15 years together. 15 years is not a prison term. If you feel bad, you need to change the situation, and not endure it forever. The phone was ringing off the hook with calls and messages. Igor called 10 times, wrote angry SMS. Come back immediately. You're acting like a child. Because of you, the holiday was ruined. Then the tone changed to pleading. Well, let's talk. Maybe I was wrong, Natasha, but stop sulking. Natasha turned off the sound and put the phone face down. Are you really going for a week? Joanna asked. Yes, I need to be alone, to think, to understand what I want from life in general. Then let's go to my parents' dacha tomorrow. They're in the city now, the dacha is empty. Silence, forest, no one. Just the thing to come to your senses. Natasha nodded. For the first time in many years, she felt something akin to relief, as if a huge, unbearable weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Yes, there were difficult conversations ahead, perhaps a divorce, scandals, but right now, at this moment, she felt at ease. Natasha spent the next 3 days at the dacha. She slept until lunchtime, walked through the autumn forest, read books she'd long wanted to read, cooked herself simple food, not festive dishes for 20 people, but scrambled eggs and sandwiches. And that was happiness. Messages from Igor were at first full of indignation, then turned into complaints. Artyom doesn't want to eat pasta, he says, it's not tasty. Where do you keep the steam iron? I have a meeting tomorrow, and my shirt is wrinkled. How do I iron it? Not a single, I'm sorry. Not a single, I was wrong. Only complaints about the fact that it's uncomfortable to live without her. Mom called every day, asking how things were, and didn't try to persuade her to come back, just offering support. Dad was silent, but Mom told her he was on Natasha's side. Dad said he'd been wanting to punch Igor for a long time for the way he treats you. And then on the 4th day, Artyom called. Mom, when are you coming home? His son sounded confused. I don't know, Artyom. How are you? Mom, everything's weird here. Dad can't cook. Grandma came over, cooked, but she had a fight with Dad. She said he was ungrateful. And anyway, what's the big deal? Mom, are you really not coming back? Natasha was silent. Artyom, answer me honestly. Do you think it's normal that Dad gave me a saucepan for my birthday and Grandma a car? Silence. Artyom, I didn't think about it. I thought it was a joke. Did you find it funny? No, his son said quietly. No, I felt awkward, but I thought you wouldn't be offended. You always understand everything. Artyom, the fact that I silently endured it doesn't mean it didn't hurt. I just didn't show it. But you know what I've realized over the past few days? Silence and patience are not virtue. It's the path to losing yourself. Mom, I'm sorry. It was the first apology from anyone in her family. Natasha felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, son. I'm also sorry for making a scene in front of the guests, but I had to do it, you know? I had to show everyone that I'm not a free service. On the 5th day, Jana arrived. Natasha, I have news. Igor called me and asked me to tell you he wants to talk. Seriously. And what did you say? I'll tell him where, but it's up to you. Natasha looked out the window. Birches swayed outside the glass, the sun was shining. She didn't want to return to that world where she was invisible. Let him come here, she said. If he really wants to talk, let him come. I won't go back to that apartment for everything to be the same again. Igor arrived the next evening. Natasha watched from the window as he got out of the car, rumpled, tired, not at all like the self-confident man who had given her a saucepan a week ago, to the laughter of the guests. She came out onto the porch. They stood opposite each other. And for the first time in 15 years, Natasha didn't rush to greet him, didn't smile, didn't try to smooth over the awkwardness. Hello, Igor said. May I? That's why you're here. They went into the house and sat down at the old wooden table in the kitchen. Igor was silent for a long time, twirling the cup of tea that Natasha silently placed in front of him. I don't know where to start, he finally said. With an apology, for example. He looked up at her. I'm sorry. I really didn't think you'd perceive it that way. It was just a joke. Igor, stop. Natasha raised her hand. If you came here to make excuses and say that I got it all wrong, you can go back. I don't need an explanation of why you decided that giving your wife a saucepan was funny. I need to understand if you even realize what's been going on all these years. Igor fell silent again, then sighed. This week was a nightmare. I didn't know where anything was. I didn't know how to turn on the washing machine. I burned 2 frying pans trying to cook eggs. Artyom was eating sandwiches until Mom arrived and cooked food. And Natasha listened silently. And I realized, Igor continued, I really don't know how we live. I mean, I work, I come home, and everything is ready at home, food is on the table, clean clothes are in the closet, the bills are paid, and I thought that's how it should be, that it's normal. And now I realize that it's not. He nodded, as if to himself. Natasha, I screwed up. I didn't appreciate you. I took everything you did for granted. And this gift. God, I really thought it was funny. New saucepan is beautiful, isn't it? Mom said you'd be happy. Your mom, Natasha chuckled, who'd gotten a 1,000,000-ruble car, thought I'd be happy with a 300-ruble saucepan. I understand how it looked. It's just that I promised Mom a car a long time ago, and I wanted to give you something useful. Useful, Natasha shook her head. Igor, do you understand the difference between a gift and a work tool? A gift is something that makes a person happy, and you gave me work tools, as if I were an employee, not a wife. I get it. Really. He extended his hand across the table, but Natasha didn't return the gesture. Natasha, please come home. We'll change everything. How exactly? Well, I'll help around the house, I'll cook dinner, or we'll order food. I'll hire a cleaning lady so you don't have to do everything yourself. Natasha was silent, looking at her husband. He sincerely thought that this was enough, that they could hire a cleaning lady, and the problem would be solved. Igor, you still don't get it. It's not just about cleaning and cooking, it's about the relationship. You don't see me as a person. For you, I'm a function. A wife cooks, a wife cleans, a wife earns. But who am I as a person? What do I want? What do I dream about? When was the last time you asked me about this? He was silent, confused. You see? Do you know what I want? Natasha stood up. I want my husband to know how I like my coffee, what books I read, what I think about before bed. I want to be inconvenient, but loved. Igor stood up and walked up to her. I love you. No. Natasha shook her head. You love the comfort I create for you, but you don't know me. Then let's start over. There was desperation in his voice. I will try. I'll get to know you. I'll be different. Just don't leave. Natasha turned to him. Igor, I can't promise you that everything will be like before, because I don't want it to be like before anymore. I've been thinking a lot here at the dacha and I realized that in the last few years I haven't been living, I've been existing. Work, home, an endless circle of responsibilities. I've forgotten who I am, what I love, what I want. I've dissolved into my family so much that there's nothing left of me. What do you mean by that? I mean that I won't go back to my old life. If we stay together, everything has to change completely. I agree, Igor said quickly. Tell me what needs to be done, and I'll do it. Natasha took out her phone and opened the notes she'd been writing for the past few days. Okay. Listen carefully. First. We split the housework equally. I made a list. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, shopping. We divide everything up by day. 50/50ths. And no, hiring a cleaner isn't the solution. You have to learn to do it yourself so you understand the amount of work. Igor nodded. Second. Finances. No more major purchases over 10,000 without discussion. All expenses are a joint decision. And each of us has personal money, which we manage ourselves. I agree. Third. Your mother, Aleftina Petrovna, no longer comes every week and tells me how to live. If she wants to see her grandson, she invites him to her place or comes by prior arrangement. And no criticism of me. Fourth. Our son is 14 years old and he still can't warm up his own lunch. That's it. He's learning to cook, clean up after himself, and wash his own clothes. We won't raise yet one infantile man who will expect his wife to become his servant. Okay. And lastly, fifth. Natasha looked her husband in the eyes. Once a week I have personal time, an evening or a whole day, when I do what I want. I meet with friends, go to the cinema, to the pool, just take a walk. And this is not negotiable. This is my time, and it is inviolable. Igor was silent, digesting the information. If at least one of these conditions is not met, Natasha continued, I am leaving for good. I will no longer be patient and hope that you change. Either you change right now, or we break up. I have no more strength. I understand everything, Igor said quietly. And I will really try. Natasha, give me a chance to prove that I can be different. Natasha sighed. You will get your chance, but know that I will not remain silent anymore. If I don't like something, I will say it. If you relapse into your old behavior, I will point it out. And if you don't change, I will leave without regret. They returned to the city the next day. Natasha warned that she was staying with Zhanna for a while, she needed time to believe in the changes. Igor didn't argue. He really tried the first week. He cooked dinner, a sloppy job, cleaned according to his schedule, and even did the laundry once, though he dyed half the clothes pink because he didn't sort them by color. Natasha remained silent. He was learning. Artyom was trying too, he was learning to cook scrambled eggs and pasta and cleaning up after himself. But there was a row with Aleftina Petrovna. She arrived 3 days later and started scolding Natasha from the moment she walked in. I heard you started a revolution here. If you want to keep seeing us, stop interfering in our family life. How dare you talk to me like that? I talk to you the way you deserve. You've been criticizing me, pointing out and humiliating me for 15 years. Enough. If you don't like it, you don't have to come. Aleftina Petrovna turned to her son in a rage. Igor, do you hear how she treats me? Igor, to Natasha's great surprise, stood next to his wife. Mom, Natasha is right. You really are constantly criticizing her. And I asked you to stop. If you can't treat my wife with respect, come when she's not home. The mother-in-law left, slamming the door. Natasha looked at her husband in amazement. Did you really say that? I promised to change. He shrugged. I'm starting by protecting you. I should have done that a long time ago. A month passed. Life was slowly rebuilding. Igor still sometimes forgot his responsibilities, but Natasha reminded him calmly, without scandals. Artyom became more independent, and Natasha, she began to come back to herself. She signed up for a swimming pool, met with Jeanna on Fridays, bought herself a beautiful dress, not grey and practical, but a bright emerald one, which she had long dreamed of. One evening, Igor put a velvet box in front of her. What is this? Natasha was surprised. Open it. She opened it. Inside were car keys. She looked at her husband in confusion. Your car. I sold the one I bought for Mom. She didn't object. After our conversation, we made up, and she said it was wrong that she had a car and you didn't. So now you have your own. Not new, but good. Natasha was silent, looking at the keys. This doesn't make up for that gift with the saucepan, Igor continued. Nothing will. But I want to show that you are important to me. And did you really want to leave? He asked quietly. Then, on my birthday, I thought about it. You know, at that moment I didn't know. I just couldn't stay any longer. I needed to leave so as not to break down completely. And then at the dacha I thought about divorce. I seriously thought about it. And what stopped you? The fact that you came and asked for forgiveness, without making excuses. You didn't blame me, you simply admitted you were wrong. That was important. For the first time in many years, I saw that you were ready to change. Igor took her hand. I don't want to lose you. And I realized that I was losing you every day, simply without noticing. I won't anymore. Natasha squeezed his fingers. This is just the beginning, Igor. There's still a lot of work ahead on the relationship, on yourself. But if you're truly ready, we can do it. They sat holding hands, the moon shining through the window. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest, without silence, without forced patience, without pretense. Natasha was no longer invisible. She was herself, tired but strong, hurt but willing to give it a chance. A woman who had finally learned to value herself. And the pot and the broom still stood on the top shelf in the pantry, a reminder. A reminder of the day when Natasha stopped being convenient and became free. And if someone in the family forgot about respect, she would silently point to this shelf. That was enough. 6 months later, on Igor's birthday, Natasha gave him a beautifully wrapped box. He opened it tentatively and laughed. Inside was a certificate for a cooking class for 2. We'll learn together, Natasha said, as equals. If you liked this story, subscribe to stay up to date with new heartfelt stories and leave a comment. I'm always interested in your opinion.